The night was dark. My husband, Robert, had been away on a long business trip for several weeks. The house felt empty without his warm presence, and I often found myself sitting alone in the quiet living room, thinking about the past and what the future might bring. I remember that night clearly. It began like any other evening, but something felt off in the air. I had a strange feeling deep inside, that my life was about to change in ways I could not yet imagine. I sat on the couch, staring at a faded photograph of Robert and me from happier times. There was an uneasy silence that filled the space around me. The only sound was the soft ticking of the wall clock and the occasional creak of the house settling. I tried to distract myself by reading a book, but my mind wandered back to Robert and all the unanswered questions I had. The picture of our life together looked perfect, but I could not shake a nagging feeling that something was wrong, even though everything seemed fine on the surface. My son Alex was home during this time. He was a bright and cheerful boy, always full of curiosity and questions about the world. Yet I sensed a heaviness in his spirit when he came to visit me in the evenings. That night, after Alex had finished his homework, he came into the living room and sat down beside me. I noticed the slight tremble in his hands and the look of worry on his face. His eyes were wide and filled with questions that he struggled to voice. Alex had always been open with me, sharing his adventures at school and his dreams for the future. But tonight, his demeanor was different. He looked like he carried a secret that weighed him down. He watched me for a moment, as if trying to find the right time to speak. I could see the thoughtfulness in his eyes and his lips pressed tightly together. The quiet between us was thick with unspoken words. I gently asked him, "Is everything okay, Alex? You seem upset." He looked away for a moment, taking a deep breath before answering. There was a pause that felt like an eternity, and my heart started to thump faster. The fear of what he was about to say made my own heart race. "Mom," he finally whispered, "there is something I need to tell you. It's really hard and I don't know how to say it." His words hung in the air like a thick fog. I tried to smile reassuringly at him, hoping to give him the courage to speak. But my smile was weak and uncertain. I put my arm around him, trying to comfort him, but the warmth of his small hand in mine didn't match the cold feeling that was starting to seep into my own heart. I braced myself for what was to come, but at that moment, I had no idea how much more I would soon learn. Alex took another deep breath and opened his mouth to speak, but then closed it again. His eyes filled with tears as he looked at me, and I saw how hard it was for him to gather his thoughts. The silence stretched on, and I held him, feeling his trembling body against mine. I didn't know what to expect, but I could sense that this was a moment that would change our lives forever. As time passed, the room felt smaller and the air heavier. I thought back to the last time we had a conversation like this, and my mind raced through various possibilities. Maybe it was something simple, like a bad dream he had or an issue at school. But deep down, I knew that his secret was something that would shake me to my core. I could feel the tension building, like a storm on the horizon, and I knew that whatever he was about to say, I had to be strong for him. The clock ticked on, and the minutes felt like hours. I could see the fear in Alex's eyes, and I knew that the truth was coming, even if he didn't say it out loud. I tried to encourage him by saying gentle words, but my voice came out shaky, betraying my own fear. I thought about Robert and wondered what he might be doing right now, unaware of the emotional turmoil I was experiencing at home. The uncertainty about his fidelity lingered in my mind, but I pushed that thought aside, focusing on my son and his need to tell me something important. Finally, Alex looked up at me with a tear-filled face, his voice barely above a whisper. "Mom, I think there's something wrong with Dad," he said, his words trembling with uncertainty. The shock of those words hit me like a cold wave. My mind raced with questions. What did he mean? Was there trouble between Robert and someone else? Was he in danger, or was I in danger? I felt a knot tighten in my stomach as I tried to process his words. In that moment, I realized that our calm life was about to be disrupted. I had always trusted Robert and believed in the strength of our family, but now I was faced with the possibility that this trust might have been misplaced. My heart raced, trying to be strong for Alex. He was already so brave to bring up such a heavy topic, and I needed to support him the way he needed me now. I looked at him closely, trying to see the truth in his eyes. He seemed so sincere, so scared of what he was about to reveal. I reached out and gently wiped a tear from his cheek, hoping that this small act of comfort would help him open up. "It's okay, Alex." His hands were shaking as he clutched the fabric of his pants, and I could tell he was afraid of making things worse by speaking out. His next words were slow and careful, as if he was treading on fragile glass. "Mom, I found some messages on Dad's phone. I didn't want to say anything because I was scared, but I think you should know." This was the moment I had dreaded and both expected and hoped would not come. The room seemed to spin around me as his confession took shape. My mind flooded with thoughts and emotions: fear, anger, sadness, and confusion. What kind of messages? Who were they from? Was my husband betraying me? The world I knew was beginning to crack. As I tried to steady my voice, I found myself whispering, "What kind of messages, Alex?" I needed him to continue, to give me more details, but I could see how difficult it was for him to speak further. Alex hesitated, tears glistening on his cheeks. He took a deep breath and continued. "They were from someone named Emily. I think she means a lot too, Dad. I saw photos and kind words that don't seem right for just a friend." His small voice carried so much weight, and every word he spoke felt like a blow to my heart. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. This was something I had never imagined could happen in our family. As Alex spoke, my mind started to wander to scenarios I never wanted to face. What if Robert was not the man I thought he was? What if our life together was a lie? I tried to keep my feelings in check, but the tears started to flow freely down my face. I was torn between protecting my son and confronting the painful truth. I placed a hand on his shoulder, trying to offer him some comfort, even as my own heart broke inside. I didn't tell him to stop or feel guilty. Instead, I let him speak. He continued to share fragments of what he had seen, careful not to reveal too many details all at once. I sensed that he too was scared of the bigger picture, perhaps afraid of what this secret might mean for him, for us, and for our family. The confusion on his face mirrored my own inner turmoil. I felt like I was stepping into a dark unknown. Each word from Alex was a step further down a path filled with unexpected turns and looming shadows. The fear of losing the family I knew crept up inside me, but I knew I had to be brave. I squeezed his hand gently, offering him a silent promise that we would face whatever came next together. The conversation continued for what felt like hours. Alex described how he had stumbled upon the messages by accident, how he tried to understand what was happening, and how he felt responsible for telling me. His concern for me shone through his words. He didn't want to hurt me, yet he felt it was necessary to share this burden. I listened carefully, my heart aching with every piece of information he offered. Yet I struggled with the thought of how to handle the truth. I also began to see changes in Alex. He was quieter, more guarded, and I sensed that the burden he carried was heavier than his age should allow. He used to be so carefree and lively, but now his small shoulders seemed weighed down by a seriousness that puzzled me. I tried to comfort him, hoping he would share more, but he remained tight-lipped, as if afraid to reveal more than he already had. His silence was almost louder than his words, and I feared what it might mean. Every morning I woke up with a new set of questions pressing on my mind. I thought about whether I should try to learn more by myself, to seek evidence or talk to people who might know something about Robert and Emily. The idea of doing so made me feel like I was entering a world of secrets and lies, a world I had hoped to avoid for the sake of my family. But the truth was clawing at my mind, demanding that I face it head-on. One afternoon, I found myself alone in the kitchen, the aroma of fresh bread filling the air. It was a simple comfort, yet the silence around me felt heavy with unspoken words. I started to imagine what Robert might be doing, where he might be, and who he was with. I wondered if he was thinking of us, if he missed Alex, if he even cared about how we felt without him. The uncertainty was painful, and I wanted to believe in the love we once shared. But the secret weighed on me like a stone. While mulling over these thoughts, I remember a small detail, that Alex had mentioned the name, Emily. I kept repeating it in my head, wondering what kind of person she was, and how she could have a place in our lives. Was she a friend, a family member, or someone else entirely? The mystery of Emily became a shadow that loomed over every part of my day. I wanted to know, desperately, but I feared the answer might tear our family apart even more. I decided to check the messages Alex had shown me, to see if I could gather more clues. The phone was resting on the coffee table, glowing in the dim light of the room. I picked it up, feeling its weight in my hands, and stared at the screen. There were many messages from Emily, filled with words that seemed kind and loving. I scrolled through them slowly, each sentence adding to my confusion and fear. The more I read, the more my heart sank. I had hoped there was a mistake, that maybe these messages were not what I thought they were. But the evidence was clear. As I looked at the messages, I remembered the first few seconds of Alex's confession. His voice, trembling yet determined, had drawn me in despite my fear of what was coming. That moment was my hook, the reason I listened so carefully to every word. Even now, reading those words from a stranger named Emily, I could still hear his quiet voice telling me the truth. It was a sound that both comforted and scared me, knowing that he trusted me enough to share something so deep. I closed the phone and took a deep breath. The realization that my husband might be unfaithful was a heavy pill to swallow. I felt like the ground beneath me had shifted, leaving me unsteady and unsure of where to go next. The questions began to multiply. Would Robert do this? How could he keep such a secret for so long? And most importantly, what did this mean for my son and me? The thought of confronting Robert filled me with dread, but I knew it was a conversation I could not avoid forever. In the days that followed, I found myself in a whirlwind of emotions. I became more alert to little details, the way the front door clicked when someone came in, the tone of my son's voice as he tried to act normal, the uneasy feeling that something was not right in our home. Each moment became a thread in the tapestry of my fear and anticipation, weaving a story that I did not know how it would end. All the while, the secret Alex shared with me remained at the forefront of my thoughts. I kept replaying our conversation, each detail etched in my memory, trying to piece together what really happened and what I should do next. I was caught between hope and despair, unsure if Robert would return to explain himself, or if I would have to face these questions alone. The uncertainty was a constant companion, whispering doubts and fears in quiet moments when I thought I was alone. As night fell again, I sat by the window, looking out at a sky full of stars. I whispered a quiet prayer for strength, hoping that I would find the courage to face this new challenge ahead. The world outside seemed calm, but inside I was a storm of emotions, swirling around with no clear direction. I thought of Alex, trying to reassure him, even as I struggled to find reassurance for myself. The truth was like a seed planted in my heart, slowly growing roots that would soon burst through the soil of our lives. It was a secret that had the power to hurt, to change everything. I did not know what form the next chapter of our story would take, but I knew one thing for sure: nothing would be the same again. With each passing moment, the tension grew, and I sensed that the calm before the storm was over. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with twists and turns I could not yet see, but I would face it, one step at a time, with Alex by my side. I remember the evening so clearly. It was dark outside, and I could feel my heart pounding as Alex sat on the edge of the couch. He looked so nervous and upset. I knew from his shaky voice that he had something important to tell me. The room felt very quiet, and heavy with unspoken words. I reached out, took his hand, and told him he could share anything with me. That simple gesture helped him gather his courage, and he started to speak. Alex told me that he had found some strange messages on Dad's phone. I felt a jolt of fear run through me. "What kind of messages, Alex?" I asked softly. His eyes filled with tears, and he looked away for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was small. "Mom, I saw texts that I didn't understand," he whispered. I could see that he was scared of what these messages might mean. I pressed him gently. "Tell me more, honey. It's okay." Alex hesitated. The next moments felt like an eternity as he gathered his thoughts. I could tell he was torn between fear and the need to share the truth. He finally said, "There was a woman sending Dad lots of messages." The words hit me like a cold splash of water. I felt my hands tremble. I did not know what to think. My heart was full of questions. There was a moment of silence between us. I looked at Alex, seeing that he was trembling too. His voice was barely a whisper. "I think Dad might not be honest with us." I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing mind. The idea that my husband could be unfaithful was a heavy thought, one that made my stomach twist. But I knew I had to stay calm for Alex. I held him tight. As he sobbed, I tried to comfort him, although I felt hurt and betrayed myself. There was so much to process. I did not know what to say, but I knew that listening to him was the most important thing. While I held him, I told him that everything was going to be okay, even though I was not so sure myself. Alex took a moment to breathe and then continued, "Mom, there's more to it. I found some pictures on the phone. They were not just messages. There were pictures of Dad with that woman. I didn't know how to tell you." Hearing this, my heart sank deeper. I looked at Alex and saw the worry in his eyes, and I realized that he was afraid of hurting me. The room felt even heavier with silence. I wondered how long this had been going on. My mind raced with questions. How could this have happened without me knowing? Was there something I missed? I felt a mix of anger, sadness, and confusion. I tried to speak in a calm voice. "Alex, how did you find these things?" I asked, trying to hide the tremor in my voice. He sighed deeply and said, "I saw Dad's phone on the table one day when he left it open. I was curious, and I looked at the last messages. They made me feel uneasy. I felt like something was not right." I marveled at his bravery for telling me this difficult secret. The next few minutes felt long and uncertain. I looked into Alex's eyes, and I could see that he was scared. He wondered how I would react. I smiled gently at him, though my heart was heavy. "Thank you for telling me, Alex. I know that it was not easy," I said, hoping to reassure him. He nodded, but didn't say much after that. There was a pause, and I felt the need to fill the silence with comforting words. "You did the right thing by telling me, dear. We will work through this together." My voice wavered slightly, and I struggled to sound confident. I didn't want to show how much I was hurting. I had to be strong for him. Alex looked up at me with tears still in his eyes. "I'm so sorry, Mom. I was scared to tell you because I didn't want to break our family. But I thought you deserved to know." His words made my heart ache. I hugged him tighter. "You could never break our family. Alex, we have to face this together, no matter how hard it is." I then gently asked, "What did those messages say exactly?" Alex hesitated again, biting his lip. The details were still fresh and raw in his mind. He took a deep breath and began to speak. There were words about meeting up, about spending time together. I couldn't understand all of it, but it seemed like Dad was planning something secret. His words made me feel a knot in my stomach. I clutched his hand, trying to hide my own fear. "And did you see anything else that felt strange?" I asked quietly. Alex nodded. "I saw some photos, Mom. They looked like they were taken on different days. The woman looked happy with Dad, and I think he might have been lying to you." Each word felt like a heavy stone dropping into my heart. I took a moment to catch my breath. How could my husband do this? I thought of the times we shared laughter, the family dinners, the dreams we built together. It was hard to reconcile that image of a loving husband with this secret. I felt tears start to well up, but I blinked them away to stay strong for Alex. Trying to regain my composure, I said, "Alex, I need you to show me what you found. We have to see it together." Alex nodded slowly, still trembling. He reached for his backpack and pulled out his tablet where he had saved some of the messages and pictures. We sat together at the small kitchen table, the glow of the tablet illuminating our anxious faces. As we looked at the messages, I felt a mix of shock and sadness. The words on the screen were clear evidence of something hidden from me for so long. I glanced at Alex, feeling immense gratitude for his honesty, but also a deep sorrow for the pain we were about to face. There was a moment when neither of us spoke, letting the silence speak for the heavy truth. The room was filled with a tense quiet. I was thinking about how our lives would change from this point. Would our family be able to stay together? Could I forgive Robert? The questions swirled in my head as I looked back at Alex, who seemed so young yet bearing a burden that no child should ever have to carry. Alex finally broke the silence. "Mom, I'm really sorry. I didn't want to hurt you." His voice shook with tears. I reached over, gently wiping away his tears with the back of my hand. "You did nothing wrong." "Alex, thank you for being brave and telling me," I reassured him. As we continued to look at the messages, I tried to think of a plan. I needed time to process everything. There was so much I didn't know yet. My mind raced with possibilities. Perhaps there was an explanation that I did not consider. Maybe Robert had reasons I hadn't heard about. But the evidence made it hard to imagine anything but a betrayal. I took a few deep breaths. "Alex, we have a lot to figure out now. I want you to know I will protect you and make sure you feel safe. We will get through this together," I promised him. He nodded, even though I could tell he was still scared. In that moment, I realized that our relationship had changed forever. I was no longer just his mother. We were partners in facing a difficult truth. I looked into his eyes and said, "We have to be strong, and we have to stick together. Thank you for trusting me." Alex looked at me with a glimmer of hope. "I'm glad you trust me, Mom. I wasn't sure how to tell you at first. I kept thinking maybe you would be angry at me for knowing." His words made me smile softly. "I'm not angry at you, Alex. I am sad and hurt by what Dad has done, but I am proud of you for telling me." I knew this was only the beginning of a long journey. We still had questions that needed answers. Who was this woman? How long had this been happening? Were there more secrets that I hadn't discovered yet? I did not know the answers, but I promised Alex that we would uncover the truth together. We spent the next few hours quietly discussing what we knew. I asked him questions, and he answered as honestly as he could. There were moments when his voice would catch, and I would gently encourage him to continue. Each answer he gave built a clearer picture of what might have been going on behind Dad's back. I also tried to reassure him that this was not his fault. "None of this is because of you, Alex. You found out something that should have been hidden, but you did the right thing by telling me." He nodded, although his eyes still carried worry. I could tell he was scared of what would happen next, but I wanted to protect him from the storm ahead. At one point, I asked him, "Do you think Dad might come back soon?" Alex shook his head. "I don't know, Mom. I heard from Dad's work that he might come home, but I'm not sure when." His uncertainty added another layer of worry. The thought of his father coming back and not knowing how to face him was painful for both of us. I remembered how safe I felt with Robert around, and now that safety was broken. The idea that someone I loved could betray our trust made me feel lost. I looked at Alex and thought about how brave he was to share this secret. His courage gave me strength, even as I felt fragile inside. As the night wore on, we talked about what to do next. I knew I had to confront Robert, but I was not sure how. I didn't want to hurt Alex further by showing too much anger or sadness. I wanted to handle the situation in a way that was honest but gentle. "I need some time to think," I told Alex softly. This is a lot to take in, but we will find a way through it. He nodded, rubbing his eyes, and we sat quietly together for a while. The quiet was filled with our unspoken thoughts and feelings, and we both sensed that this was a turning point in our lives. Suddenly, the room felt colder as I realized just how many questions remained unanswered. I thought about all the small signs I might have missed. Were there moments when I could have noticed something was wrong? This question lingered in my mind, adding to the mystery of Dad's secret life. I looked at Alex and saw that he was thinking about the future. What do you think we should do, Mom? He asked softly. His question hit me hard because I knew I needed guidance as much as he did. I'm not sure yet, Alex, I admitted, but I promise we will figure it out together, step by step. His small hand squeezed mine, and I could feel his need for comfort. I returned the squeeze, trying to be the strong parent he needed me to be. We sat there, pondering our next steps in a world that seemed to have turned upside down. Throughout our conversation, I found myself thinking of little things we could do to support each other. We talked about making a plan, about finding a quiet place where we could think without being disturbed, and about who we could talk to for help. I considered calling a trusted friend, but I was not sure how to share this with anyone without hurting their feelings. The thought of sharing such a painful story made me hesitate. I realized that keeping this secret between Alex and me made our bond stronger, but it also weighed heavily on us. I asked Alex, "Is there anyone you trust who we could talk to about this?" He thought for a moment and then said, "Maybe my teacher, but I'm not sure she would understand." This idea seemed both hopeful and risky. Talking to someone outside might give us guidance, but it also meant sharing our pain with someone else. I assured him that we would figure out who to talk to. We don't have to do it alone. We can find someone to help us understand what to do next. His face brightened just a little bit at my words. It was a small moment of relief in a sea of worries. As the night turned to early morning, we decided to take a break from the heavy talk. I made some tea, and we sat together in the quiet of our kitchen, each lost in our own thoughts. The simplicity of the moment, the warm tea, and the gentle clinking of cups gave us a small sense of normalcy. Yet, deep down, we both knew that our lives had changed forever. I kept thinking about Robert. What led him to hide such a big secret from us? Was he unhappy, or was there something else that drove him away? I knew that coming to terms with these thoughts would not be easy. I also thought about the woman in the pictures and messages. Who was she, and what did she mean to Robert? The questions twisted inside me like a puzzle with missing pieces. Alex looked up from his tea and asked softly, "Mom, do you think Dad will ever tell us why he did this?" His question made me pause. I wasn't sure of the answer, but I wanted to be honest. I don't know. Alex, there are many things I don't understand right now, I admitted. His disappointment was clear. "I wish I knew why," he whispered. I placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "We will find out in time. For now we have each other, and that is what matters most." His small smile was bittersweet, knowing that our journey to the truth was only just beginning. As we finished our tea, I felt a mix of emotions: sadness for the family we once had, hope that we could find a way forward, and determination to face the truth. I looked at Alex and knew that his strength and honesty would guide us. Although the road ahead was filled with uncertainty, we had taken the first step together. I stood up, ready to start the day with a plan. I knew I had to act carefully and think about how to approach my husband when he returned. The questions kept spinning in my head, and I felt the need to protect Alex from more pain. "Alex, tomorrow might be a hard day," I said gently, "but we will face it together." He nodded, drawing courage from my words. In that moment, our bond felt unbreakable. Even though the secret we carried was heavy, we knew that the truth about Dad would change our lives in ways we could not yet imagine. But we also knew that as long as we supported each other, we could face whatever came next. The future was uncertain, and the secrets were still unfolding. But our love for each other would guide us through the dark. I felt my heart pounding as I saw the proof of Robert's secret life. The pictures and messages I found were like pieces of a puzzle that showed a side of him I never knew. My hands shook and tears came to my eyes. I remembered Alex's quiet confession and felt a knot of fear tighten in my chest. What other secrets lay hidden in our life? I called Alex that night, my voice trembling with worry. He answered softly, and I could sense his own fear. "Mom," he whispered, "there's more to this than you think." His words made my pulse race. I wondered what else I would find. Each moment felt heavy, like I was standing at the edge of something big and scary. As Alex spoke, he told me that he suspected his friend knew more about Dad's hidden life. I could not help but feel that we were stepping into a deeper mystery. Each message he shared was like a clue in a mystery story, and I was part of it. I listened, holding my breath, waiting for the next piece of the puzzle. Every word from Alex made me feel closer to the truth, but also filled me with new fears. I asked him if there were other signs we had missed at home or at school that might explain Dad's actions. His hesitation made me even more curious and worried. What secrets had we unknowingly been part of? The thought of more surprises hit me hard. I knew this was not the end. I had to be ready for the next shock, no matter how painful, to protect our little family from the truth that was unraveling.